they were booed off their own turf. Once unbeatable, now unraveling. A coach once hailed as Europe's sharpest mind, humiliated on a cold night in Nottingham. And an African underdog just made history in England's backyard. This isn't just a friendly gone wrong. This is the unraveling of a dream. And the rise of the question no one thought we'd ask so soon: is Thomas Tuchel already the wrong man for England? It was supposed to be a simple run-out. A low-stakes international friendly. Instead, it became a night of anger, embarrassment and soul-searching for England. At Nottingham's City ground, the mood turned bitter. Fans turned on their team. Boos echoed into the night. And as Senegal celebrated a historic 3-1 victory, becoming the first African nation to beat England's men's team, many watching wondered, what has happened to the Three Lions? The match had begun with a burst of hope. Harry Kane, ever the reliable talisman, pounced early. In the 7th minute, after Edouard Mendy spilled a driven shot from Anthony Gordon, Kane snapped up the rebound for his 73rd international goal. It looked like the script would be followed, a dominant home win against a spirited but outmatched opponent. But that optimism lasted about as long as the applause for the goal. Something was off. England retreated after the opener. The tempo dropped, passes grew sloppy, and the midfield looked strangely absent. Senegal, led by a disciplined and aggressive core, began to press, pass and probe with growing confidence. England's shape began to wobble. Its purpose dissolved. The equalizer felt inevitable long before it came. 5 minutes before halftime, Kyle Walker, so often dependable, completely lost his marker. Ismaila Sarr, moving intelligently, found space at the far post and finished easily. The City ground, filled with expectant English supporters, went quiet. The defense, once lauded under Southgate, now looked shaky and unsure. This was the first goal conceded under Tuchel. It would not be the last. After the break, England's performance only worsened. Senegal were no longer just competitive, they were dominant. They pressed higher, passed quicker, and capitalized on England's glaring structural weaknesses. Then, just after the hour mark, the warning signs turned into alarm bells. Habib Diarra found space in transition, running into a gap left wide open by England's disjointed back line. He fired low. Dean Henderson, standing in for the rested Jordan Pickford, failed to get his legs in the way. The ball squeezed through. 2-1. From that point forward, England were in disarray. Tuchel threw on substitutions. Bukayo Saka came on, as did Morgan Gibbs-White. Curtis Jones and Ivan Toney entered late. But there was no spark. No rhythm. No belief. The cohesion you expect from a national team with tournament ambitions simply wasn't there. Mendy, making amends for his early mistake, stopped 2 decent efforts from Saka and Gibbs-White. Then came the moment that teased salvation, a strike from Jude Bellingham that sent fans into a brief frenzy. But VAR had other plans. In the build-up, the ball had brushed Levi Colwill's hand. The goal was ruled out. And finally, in stoppage time, the collapse was complete. Curtis Jones, under pressure in midfield, lost the ball cheaply. Senegal countered with surgical speed, and Cheikh Sabali, cool and unbothered, rolled in the third. 3-1. Full time. Senegal had made history. England had made headlines, for all the wrong reasons. What happened out there? To understand this moment, you have to understand what Thomas Tuchel was supposed to bring. The former Chelsea manager arrived with a glittering CV: Champions League winner, tactical mastermind, defensive genius. His appointment was seen as bold, modern, and ambitious. After years of pragmatic football under Gareth Southgate, Tuchel's era promised something different: fluidity, aggression, and elite structure. But international football is not club football. Tuchel waited 3 months to begin his new role, skipping the November international break entirely. It was an odd delay that meant he lost a critical period to assess players, establish chemistry, and set expectations. Since stepping in, he struggled to define even the most basic elements of his system. Who's his first-choice defense? What shape does he want to play? Who links midfield to attack? These questions, as of today, remain unanswered. England's dire 1-0 win over Andorra in the previous fixture was a red flag. A match against a footballing minnow should have been a formality. Instead, it became an uninspiring slog. And now, against the first quality opponent Tuchel has faced in his new role, England fell apart. There were individual failures. Yes. Henderson wasn't good enough in goal. Walker and Chalobah were out of position too often. Colwill had a night to forget. And Lewis Skelly, promising as he may be, was completely overrun in the middle. But this wasn't just about individuals. This was systemic. The midfield had no control. There was no defensive midfielder to shield the back four, no one to clean up second balls or manage transitions. Tuchel's setup seemed designed for club football, where training every day allows for such complexity. But on the international stage with limited time, simpler systems often succeed where intricate ones fall apart. There's a reason Gareth Southgate's steady hand took England to a World Cup semi-final and a European Championship final. His teams weren't always exciting, but they were functional, disciplined, and hard to beat. That structure is now gone. In its place is something far less clear. The Tuchel experiment, just a few games in, already looks like a gamble with high stakes. The promise of bold football has so far delivered only confusion and inconsistency. And now, with a defeat as symbolic as this one, England's first ever loss to African opposition, the questions are no longer whispers. They're headlines. Is Tuchel the right man for this job? His decision-making is under the microscope. Why was Ivan Toney called up only to barely play? Why throw in an inexperienced midfielder like Lewis Skelly instead of using someone more seasoned for balance? Why persist with experimental back threes when the team is clearly uncomfortable? Fans have taken notice. The boos at the City Ground weren't just about this one game, they were about what this game revealed. If England are vulnerable against Senegal, what will happen against France? Or Argentina? Or the USA in World Cup qualifiers? Qualification for the 2026 World Cup can no longer be taken for granted. The expansion of global football means the margins are slimmer. England must go through continental qualifying and may have to battle in playoffs. If performances like this continue, they will struggle. The squad is still talented. Kane, Bellingham, Saka, Rice, these are world-class players. But even the best talent needs guidance, needs shape, needs belief. Right now, the players don't seem to know their roles. And that's on the coach. Tuchel's defenders will point to his pedigree, his past success, and his intelligence. They'll say it's too early to panic. But in international football, there's no luxury of time. You don't get seasons to fix it. You get windows, scattered weeks with players who live and breathe under other systems the rest of the year. You must adapt or fail. The Senegal match was not a blip. It was a reflection. A mirror held up to a project that, for all its promise, is off course.